So I'm now here with Nick Clarke. So you were the leader of the county council for 2 years or so while the station was coming. So what was your role in bringing this station to North Cambridge?
Well, when I first became leader, Richard, I asked, I think it was Graham Hughes at the time, who works at the county council, to bring me a list of all the capital projects that really should have come forward but had failed to do so through lack of funding or lack of leadership or just too difficult, and to prioritise them. Cambridge Station North, the Chesterton Station, whatever you want to call it, was way and above the most obvious project that should have gone ahead, and the payback times were short, the need was clear to remove some of the congestion in Cambridge itself. This new station would be fantastic. So I think within a few weeks, if not months, I convened my cabinet, we discussed it at great length, and we'd given it the go-ahead. And by doing that, we'd agreed to fund it.
So there was some county council funding for this, and it was a question for you and your cabinet to decide, was it, whether it goes ahead? It's not...
Yeah, there's always funding for everything if it's right to do it for the people of Cambridgeshire. And remember, we had a borrowing headroom that was quite significant, so which means that there was plenty of room for us to borrow money for the right infrastructure projects, and this was one of the obvious ones. But when we moved through that story and we were talking to Network Rail, it was clear that they had issues with the sidings here anyway as they were, and they needed to shift them all around. And as time moved on, I think they then took the lead in the funding. So I've lost track of it now, if the truth be known, but my understanding.
So when you were leader, you were prepared to fund it locally for the county council,
absolutely.
even though now it's turned out to be there's national money for it, national government.
Absolutely, and that leadership, that I had meetings with Teresa Villiers at the time, and ministers, and all the rest of them, to make sure this came forward. Now, all those meetings, I have to say, are the ones I kept Julian Huppert away from, because he's such a blooming nuisance, bobbing up and down seeking credit all the time.
But wouldn't you say that really this is something that's just inevitable with the growth of Cambridge, and people, and regardless of what you and Julian say about your role in it, essentially it was going to happen, and you've all played your part?
Well, you'd like to think so, but it's been on the books for 20 years, and within 6 months of taking office, we turned it into reality. I mean, for the average people, personally.
So you think that was a turning point? You came into office.
Well, it was. There's no think about it. That was exactly what happened. I mean, it could have been somebody else that did it. Anybody could have taken that decision for the previous 20 years, but they've chosen not to. But bearing in mind, I was a businessman before being a politician for a short time. And when you look at something and it needs to be done, you get on and do it, and that's exactly what happened.
So what role are you going to play in the future of Cambridge from now onwards? Or what's next for you?
Nothing at all, I suspect. Nothing at all. But I'm enjoying my golf at the moment, of course. Well, I was asked to come out here by John, the Conservative parliamentary candidate. John Hayward. He invited me out here to say, Nick, I know you were involved with this. Can we have a picture of you? Of course we can, John. No problem at all. And what's interesting, of course, we've got Labour people in Cambridge who normally have a lot to say about what I get up to, are all also reinforcing the fact that it was our initiative that brought this station forward. And I think it's absolutely clear, and we'll get this bit in, is that the Lib Dems attempting to claim credit for this is one of the very few things left in politics that gets me interested at all, because it's a downright disgrace.
So what is it with the tone for you and John Hayward against the Liberal Democrats? Like John Hayward said that Julian Huppert's a boring person. Like why is that kind of person part of our local politics?
I've never said that Julian's boring.
But John Hayward, that's John Hayward's comment recently.
I'm not in politics anymore, so I can say just as I want. Isn't it fantastic? I have a real problem from people attempting to take credit for other people's actions. I was taught that in the Royal Air Force we didn't do things like that. My own personal standards, you never do things like that. And the games the Liberal Democrats play are just beyond the pale as far as I'm concerned, and it is wrong. When I watched Julian in the past attending meetings, turning up just long enough to tweet that he'd been there before moving on to the next one, it is a game. I think he's very, very good at it. I think he's a professional at his image creation, but I'm afraid it's not about image for me, it's about substance.
But you don't think from his point of view he's done exactly what you've done? You've spoken to the Minister, Teresa Villiers, you've spoken to the Minister, you've both made your case.
Made no difference.
But when you spoke, it did.
Because we were prepared to fund it. There's the big difference there. Somebody had to get their hands in their pockets and take the leadership to do it. And that's what made the difference. And I had meetings with ministers here, because remember, this isn't in Cambridge, It's not on Julia Hubbart's patch anyway, so he wasn't invited to these meetings. But Jim Pace, who was responsible for this area, was invited along with ministers, and lots of this happened. So we can all lobby and we can all make noises, and you're an expert in your own right of doing this. But at some point, someone has to take the problem by the tail and turn it into action.
So you don't give Julian the credit for the City Deal funding that's come to Cambridge either, then?
To be fair, that was of course set up without Julian's help to begin with, but I don't know is the answer. I'm not making a comment on that because I'm too far away from that story. But this particular one, he had nothing to do with this station being here now. The one meeting he attended that I was at with Julia, I think it was Teresa Villiers at the time, that was completely ineffectual meeting, and all the work took place after that.
Okay, thanks very much.